Hey everyone, welcome back to Taking Back Monday, where we are saying goodbye to the Sunday scaries and hello to the brand new future of work. My name is Alyssa Nolte,
And I'm Jen Silva Boucher.
and we are going to have a great conversation today. So, Jen, tell us, what is your origin story?
Yeah, when I think of my origin story, I actually hear a voice saying 6 words. They don't know what you do. So, going back like 13 years ago, in the middle of like a corporate reorg, I was probably lower entry level and trying to decide where I should go because this department is essentially being split in two. So, the leader that was taking over in this new area had talked to the executive team, and come to find out, my current manager really never escalated what or talked about what their team members did. And actually, when I got into it a little bit more, actually seemed like a lot of the work that we provided was also even passed off as if it was their work. So hearing those words at the time, it was like a lot of emotions all at once. I think the one that rose to the top was like shame and embarrassment because I allowed that to happen. But then anger, um, you know, foolishness. Then, how is this new leader coming in going to think of me if people don't know what I did? So there was a lot of emotions. And I think at that point, I remember thinking, if I ever get into management and people leadership, I am this is like never the way I want someone that I work with, collaborate with, supports me every day to feel. So moving forward a few years into when I got my first time manager role, it was kind of a startup environment. So we were doing a lot of different things in a lot of different directions. I knew what I was doing as an individual contributor, but looking back on that, I always felt like, did I grow my team enough? Did I coach them? Did I mentor them? Part of it was the environment, right? But I probably could have done more looking back on that, but I didn't get any kind of training or resources or anything. It's like, hey, you're good at what you do. Now go lead a team. So, I'd say the last 6 to 8 years is really when I dove into my learning and growth and really um, people leadership, taking time to really grow my team, see what gets behind their performance, what motivates them, what drives them. And that's kind of where the genesis of For the Middle Academy came up. Just noticing the gap in resources, especially for first time managers and anybody in the middle or people leadership role. We have things coming down, a lot of different directions. And those are the people that usually get the least amount of resources and why. So, leaning into my leadership communications, in my communications marketing background, I developed a program of things that have worked for me. Um, and now I am talking to people and trying to build this community for middle managers and people leaders to really thrive in not what they also do, but then also grow and mentor their teams.
Unfortunately, I
Unfortunately,
think
I
that your origin story is something that we hear from a lot of people, right? Like they found out that a leader was taking credit for their work, that wasn't escalating, that wasn't kind of being that insulating layer. But one of the things that you said that really resonated with me, and I'm sure resonate with a lot of the people who listen to this podcast, particularly the women, you said something like, I looked back and asked myself if I did enough coaching, if I did enough opportunities for my team, if I did enough growth. And I think simply having that thought in your head means that you probably did, because a majority of leaders won't even have enough care. And I shouldn't say leaders, that's probably the wrong word. The majority of people in management roles would not even care enough to do a retrospective and wonder if they did enough. They're only worried about what the fire or the mess that's in front of them. And so I think a lot of us as people who are trying to be true leaders with a capital L and live up to that expectation that we've created for ourselves and that we want other people to view us as, we look back and say, I didn't do enough, when in reality, we're probably just doing like 10x more than every manager that most people are encountering.
That's interesting. I definitely have never really thought of it that way, but I can definitely see that. And that's probably one of the strengths that some people as the great leaders really have is that care, right? So, and that's another thing I like to focus on. We all have different strengths, right? What are the strengths that you as that middle manager, people manager can lean into? It's really hard to change, saying like you're a super analytical person, like it's really hard to lean into things that aren't your strengths. But what are those strengths? And what are those like leadership roots? Like, do you have like a really good sense of awareness? Do you have a really good ability to provide clarity, give people autonomy, provide trust? Those things are all great, right? So, but how are you also communicating and conveying those things? I think that's sometimes what's missing. There's varying levels of communication or lack thereof. And I'm not just talking about communication, right? It's like you can talk to people, but I'm talking, really articulating, advocating, using, even if it's body language, even it's like the written word, emails alone, you can get like people's hair raising on the back of their neck, right? So, how do we get in front of these people, figure out what their strengths are, and then teach them a way to communicate that will elevate their team members to higher performance, and then obviously will grow them as a leader as well. And it's not always easy. And I think that's what happens is, and I think that's also why leadership sometimes doesn't want to tackle management because, you hear things out, well, people don't change or, what's going to really move the needle. It's really consistency in communication. I mean, I really believe that. As long as you have consistency in communication and having open dialogue and that really like care for each individual contributor, I think that is what moves the needle. But it doesn't come overnight. But nothing successful does, right? We all know that. Anything that is worth it, building a business, building a career, it takes time and it takes consistency.
Yeah. The time thing I think is especially important. Like if you look at the history of an employee, right? You go to college for 4 years and you spend 4 years becoming a pre-professional, someone who's ready to graduate. You go through all this training and all of this stuff and you go to lectures and you do workshops and then you spend an X number, let's just say 5 years becoming an individual contributor and you go to all the trainings and they teach you everything you need to know and it takes years to develop and become like a really good individual contributor and then you get approximately 0 minutes to become a great manager because
Mhm.
it's almost like people think you can just flip this switch and become a great people leader. But I have seen great individual contributors be absolutely horrendous people leaders because they don't have the skills to do it. And I use the word skills specifically because leadership's not a personality trait, it is a set of skills. So take us through how you help people in that middle moment where they're no longer an individual contributor, but they are not given the time, space, or resources to become a truly great manager.
Right. I think the first thing that gets missed and people might think, oh, it's not really important. It might not be like, say an actionable thing, but really is like clarifying the change in mindset that is needed. So you are no longer primarily an individual contributor. Like you have to realize, yes, well, you have your own tasks, right? That are a little bit higher function, administrative, managing up. Absolutely. But I think one of the biggest mistakes I see a lot of first time managers, and I've actually seen people even in higher up positions because I think they've never either brought awareness to it or never been trained that taking so much on that their team is not growing and they're not getting as much done because they still have that mindset that they need to know what everybody is doing at every second or jump in and do these things because you're the manager and you're responsible. Now you're responsible to know what the goals are of the business and figure out everybody's strengths on your team, including your own, and how to push those levers and how to help people grow. give them trust them with new assignments. Hey, they're going to make mistakes. As long as you're not making this like huge mistake that's like losing billions of dollars, I feel like, and I think it comes from school, right? We have this such aversion to making a mistake. And I really think that comes from like years and years of like just traditional school, like taking tests. You don't want to make a mistake, right? Because then you get bad grades, and showing that even like smaller missteps is a learning experience. So I think primarily I start talking about like mind shifts that need to be taken. And then going into a little bit more of channels to communication, frameworks, cadences to meet with your team. Um, gets a little bit more like granular and planning and action based. But the first thing that's most important is the mindset shift for sure.
So I'm going to ask you a two-part question. I'm going to give you both parts because they might intersect, but I want to hear kind of the frame from both. So if someone is hearing this and they are either one, a brand new manager who just got put into this situation where they have moved from individual contributor and they are ready to lead a team, and they are hearing this and saying, okay, I'm hearing the call to action. I know that I need to do something. What is the one thing you would have them start doing in order to head down this path of great leadership? And then on the flip side, if I am an upper level leader and I'm about ready to promote a new manager into this role, what should I do to ensure that the environment they step into is the best possible outcome for them and their team?
Okay, so let's go to the first one. So, looking at it from the lens of like the first time manager. So, after kind of having some of the conversations about mindset, I think it's going in really talking, okay, here's your team. What are the functions? What are the roles? Right? How do you communicate with them to say, move certain goals over the needle? Okay. What is the framework? Are we going to develop cadences for team meetings? Do we need a team meeting? Maybe we don't. Do we want to develop a cadence for like 30-minute hot seat discussions just so everybody's on the same page? I think it's talking and figuring out what the goal is of not only the department, but then each role, and developing that plan so they can thrive. Because I think a lot of times too, they just don't have a plan. Like, hey, we got this project coming up. We'll have a meeting about it. And then, well, are you talking to each individual and then then going to another individual and telling them what they're doing? Sometimes that's not really the best way. You think it's the best way, but maybe it's not the best way, because then maybe some people also like to be more involved in the conversation. They like to generate ideas, and that can only come, with group sessions. So it's really talking through what that plan is based on the manager's role and goal. Um,
Yeah, I
yeah.
think sometimes people assume like it's intuitive over being clear. And I do this with my own kids. Like I learned so many leadership lessons from my children and my family and my personal life that I take over into my work life. So I have a two-story house, and I am notorious for putting stuff on the stairs. And to me, stuff on the stairs, like on the bottom of the stairs, means, and we're going to take this up, right? Like it's on the bottom of the stairs and you're walking up the stairs. You should grab it and take it up, right? It is not intuitive for my husband or my children because I will set stuff on the stairs and it sits there for like for like weeks until someone brings it up. And it finally occurred to me like, oh, I intuitively know that I want this to go up as the quote unquote leader of the house. And my children do not intuitively know that I want this to go up. And if I just say, hey, if you see stuff on the stairs, you got to bring it up. But I had to articulate that out loud and have a conversation with them, even as something as small as like, hey, when we eat some Cheetos, we throw the trash away. We don't just leave it on the side table. But saying it out loud, what's intuitive to me is not necessarily intuitive to everyone else that I'm talking to.
Absolutely. And I think it's funny because I actually had that same exact steer discussion with my family and my kids, because I do the same thing. Put stuff
It's a
on the stairs.
universal experience.
I take it out. Everybody else just walks by their stuff. And you're like,
It's like invincible.
But so I'm laughing on that part. But yeah, that's exactly true. I mean, even when it comes to especially say if you're a new manager and either you're building a team or if you're coming in as a new manager and there's an existing team. Sitting down, how do you guys like to each individual at first? Like, how do you like to be communicated and led to? I've had people that, you know, they're like, hey, I love like giving me a project, tell me the goals, I'll hit the ground running, and then I'll check in with you once a week. Perfect. I have other people that if they're like, well, I need a little bit more face time, right? So I want to make sure I'm on my track more often. Okay, that's good. So where that other person, if I checked in with them more often, felt I was micromanaging them, right? But then I have other people that if I don't check in with them, they see it as a lack of leadership and support. So that's why I'm saying like the communication is really where I see the breakdown a lot. Um, in really knowing the strengths and how it's really almost being like that leadership chameleon. But unfortunately, that's kind of the name of the game. If you want to be successful, you need
Yeah.
to become the leader they need, not
It's
vice
so
versa.
funny. So you can't see my notebook. I have a notebook on my on my desk that I literally just wrote as you were talking. The ultimate leader adapts to the team, not the other way around. And then you said leadership chameleon. And so like if two people are independently coming to this conclusion, it has to be right, right? That's
Right?
the universe saying this is correct. This is the right answer. And
I I really believe it.
I do too, and I, in my very limited spare time, I also coach a team of dancers, and so I've done that for 15 years, and we're on a high school dance team, so if you think about it, I've had probably several hundred 14 to 18-year-olds who I've, coached and taught and built relationships with, and one of the things I always tell my assistant coaches when they come in for the first time is that you will think that you're gonna be a leader in a very specific way, and you'll have expectations, and you're gonna enforce them and blah, 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 blah. But I'm like, you're gonna find that you will have to be a different coach to all 20 girls on the team. You're a coach, this kind of coach to that girl and this kind of coach to that girl. And it feels hard and it might not even feel fair sometimes that you have to be 20 different people for 20 different other people. But that is how you build a truly great team culture because you are who they need you to be and not the other way around.
Right. I mean, that really is, if you talk about like in like sports, why are we so attracted to sports? Because you have that great coach or few coaches that can bring this team together for one common goal. And
Yeah.
you don't see a lot in the back, but like it's a lot of work. And the really great ones also love it because, they like that connection. And I think that's what it is too. I think some of the great leaders really value connection um, and really knowing and caring about their people. And I think that's kind of a shift I'm also seeing. We see all the stuff about the demographics, like what does Gen Z want and things like that. And, and the boomers are like hating on Gen Z and vice versa, because I mean, there has been a shift and it's time for us, even just like as corporate America, to adapt. The younger workforce is coming in and not saying like, oh, I got a job, like whatever, I punch in, I punch out. They're coming in saying like, okay, I want to add value here. Am I moving the needle? Are my contributions being either valued or listened to or advocated? And they run more purpose at work. And honestly, what is wrong with that? We spend so much time at work.
Yeah.
That's what makes us feel well at work. That's what makes us be better contributors. So I think the time is is now to really find where the gap is in some of these trainings, which I know it is. Like there's studies that's like, your average first time manager is 30. The average age that they get their first leadership training is 42. I mean, that's a big gap here.
Yeah. And let's go back to the second part of my question because I think that that is a gap that we have to address, right? Nobody wakes up in the morning on Monday and says, "You know what? I'm really looking forward to being undervalued today and I can't wait to have zero purpose in my life." And I really get a lot of joy from doing something that doesn't matter. Like no human being, we're not wired that way, right?
Right.
We want to do things that matter. And if I'm a leader, I'm the 42-year-old leader. I got the training that I needed, or I'm in my 50s and I've hit that VP level. I'm about ready to promote that 30-year-old individual contributor into a manager. What kinds of things should I be doing to ensure that they have the resources that I didn't get when I was first promoted.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's really trying to find some leadership training programs at the get go, not waiting until there's an issue. Because that's another thing I see a lot of times too. Well, and I've actually had conversations with certain people. I love HR, love you guys, but like sometimes like, well, we offer the classes, but the people that probably should take it don't sign up for it, but they're there. So what are we going to do? Well, maybe it's, hey, you have a new role. There's onboarding for almost every role, but it's more technical, right? And then your
Right.
benefits and all this. Like, why isn't there onboarding for managers, especially if you're finding out this is like a first time manager? There should be some onboarding, a couple hours a week. You have some either, training or some webinars, something that helps them. Because another thing, I've had this conversation with other mid level managers. Sometimes it's the loneliest job in the world
Right.
because you also have to not only help your team, but you have to learn how to also collaborate with your peers in a way that is helpful and that makes it easier for your team members to collaborate, say, with their team members. So there's a lot to it, but I think just addressing that there is a need and trying to find out how we can communicate better and give support is the first step for sure.
And if someone is like hearing this and they say, okay, I'm so far down the road, I do need help. Is it too late for them to turn it around with their team?
I don't think so. And but I think that person really has to go like, okay, this is just not working. I want it to work. You can change. I think it's like with anything, right? You can make, we have our innate personalities and our innate strengths and weaknesses. But if there's something that you really want to do, you can find the resources, learn how to do something new. It is a skill. Like leading teams is a skill because that's not something that you're just born knowing how to do. And again, like you mentioned, college, you have training, you have all this for this individual work. Nobody tells like, okay, you have to even craft out your day and your week. Like most of your stuff or your daily work is probably not going to be your daily work. Like be prepared for that. Like you might get like an hour or two and you have to carve that out over the week. Knowing just things like that, I think is helpful, how to prioritize and just how to speak to people, and shift priorities where needed without coming across as, um, just kind of like a micromanager. I think is just, again, like there is a lot of pieces to it. And I don't think there's a one size fits all approach, but acknowledging that we need to communicate better to our teams and give the middle managers and especially the people manager support is important, especially as they get promoted to the top, because you hope then at least the leadership people that are running the organization value also like their team members, across all levels of the organization. So I think that's another thing too, is like getting in at that time period before people, become the C-suite is truly where you're going to see um, change in corporate culture.
And considering all of the incredible people that you know or that you aspire to know, who is leading the charge? Who is taking back Monday?
So it's interesting. I think at the end of the day, I know people probably throw out names. I think we all need to take back Monday. I think it's everyone's everyday contributions. I am seeing like a lot of people talking more about what it really means to be a successful people leader, especially on LinkedIn. Like, and I think this is a conversation that is so important to have where we didn't have these conversations 10 years ago, right? Nobody wanted to rock the boat. Happy to be the worker bee and we want to stay employed obviously. But I think it's great that I think collectively you're seeing a shift in thinking, especially when it comes to corporate America in people management and middle management. And I think we all have a piece to take back that Monday for sure.
And if someone is hearing this and they are really connecting with you, they want to learn more, they want to check out some of your content or your opportunities or what you've got going on, where can they find you online?
Yeah, absolutely. So they can find me on my website for themiddleacademy.com. It'll have some information on coaching and speaking. There are some upcoming leadership communication series workshops. And then they can also find me on LinkedIn under Jen Silva Boucher.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking back Monday with me.
Thank you so much, Alyssa. It was a great conversation.
Thanks for joining us on Taking Back Monday, where we say goodbye to the Sunday scaries and hello to meaningful and fulfilling work. If you enjoyed today's episode, let's connect on LinkedIn. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And if you found value here, share the podcast with your network. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a review. It helps us inspire more leaders to join the movement. Until next time, let's take back Monday.